Yesterday we looked at that Philips record player AM radio little mini console. Got the radio functional, got the amplifier functional. The record player has some issues. We're going to take a look at that one and see if we can get that one up and running. Get this entire system working like it should. Let's check it out. This is part 2. We're going to service the turntable on this one. First things first, I lift the turntable out so that I can work on it out of the chassis. It's just set in place. There's a couple plugs that go in the bottom to plug it into the amplifier, power basically, and the audio line. I'm going to disconnect them, then we'll lift the actual turntable system out, and then I can work on it. We'll clean up the idler tire and see if we can get this thing working like it once did when it was new. First, I'll disconnect the audio line and the power cord that goes into the record changer, and then the rest of it should lift out from the top. I think it'll lift out from the top. I'll just make sure that the wires aren't going to get trapped here. I'll lift the actual record changer out, and then we can set the amplifier and cabinet aside. I should note that you loosen off these screws that screw into the top down through the turntable. I didn't show you doing this on camera, but these normally sit in here like this. You loosen them off. I'm just removing them so that they don't get lost. What they do is they secure to these springs. These screw into the springs like this to hold it in place. If you don't take them off, you'll lift the springs right out, and then you got to put the springs back in. I managed to unseat one when I was taking it apart. This is how you reseat these clips. They're just held in place by there's just a spring that fits into the base. Here's the base, and the spring just fits in like this. The back end of it clips underneath two catches on the back, and then we just pull the front part of the spring in front of this other catch like this. Okay, like that, and then we pull this one in place like that. That's all there is. So these are held in place. This is what locks the turntable in place. Those black plastic retainers that go down through the turntable deck, they screw into that to hold it in place. So you loosen these off when you lift out the turntable, the assembly. And I had unscrewed them, but one of them hadn't let go, and it pulled the one base off. So that's how you reattach the base. It's got a double tip stylus, LP and LP. I think one's a sapphire and one's a diamond. Looks like that's the diamond side, and that's the sapphire side. One is probably for playing 78 records, I would think. Here is the control mechanism on the bottom. All nice metal parts. Really very little to go wrong with this. Look at the cam on this thing. A little bit of corrosion, but you know, considering how old this thing is, I don't see any parts that have seized up on it. Everything looks to be in pretty good shape. So I'm not probably going to have to do much to this. I think some of these controls might be sticking a little bit. Like this one here, this lever here, sticking a little bit. But other than that, that's the record selector size right there. Right, you got this is 7-inch, 10-inch, and 12-inch. When you press down the stop button, it returns it back. Same as when you push down, well, it's the stop button, I guess it moves it back, but that's the size selector. Just use a bit of grease probably over here. But other than that, I mean, this thing is, it's a really pretty good shape, all things considered. I mean, it's really, there's not a heck of a lot wrong with it. When it operates, I'm turning the platter by hand. You see the mechanism here operates this cam. And there's a drive shaft here. This drive shaft turns this other cam over here, another metal cam, which is what moves the arm over. And then it brings the arm back, depending on whether it's stop or start mode. We're going to lift off the platter, remove this one shaft there. That's all. I mean, that's even nicely greased. Like the lubricant is not dry on here at all. But I'll put some oil on here, and same with the actual platter bearing. But this here is. It locks into one position like that. Anyway, this all appears to be in really good shape. Like this is our speed selector over here. We'll check that out. Let me get this clip off. This is more like a snap ring as opposed to like an E-clip. Watch it go flying. There's supposed to be a special tool that you use to lift these off, which when you squeeze it, they spread out to lift it off, and they have little hooks in the end so that you can basically open it and lift. You'll see the type of ring I'm talking. This is what we call a snap ring, as opposed to an E-clip or a C-clip. That's the difference. This is a snap ring on here. It's just looks like a piece of wire. It's just a steel clip. And I say the special tool is like a pair of pliers with the ends bent so that they can hook underneath it and have a groove in them to lock it in place so that you can lift it and take them off. I don't have the luxury of one of those, so this is the way we remove them. We just carefully lift them up and lift them off. They're not hard to do, but if you're not careful, they could end up disappearing. Okay, I'll lift off the platter. Platter should just lift straight up on this unit, but of course getting something to grip it is always a challenge, so a couple of slotted screwdrivers on either side so that you can leverage it up. You can see where someone else has done this before because there's scratches on it from the last person that serviced this thing. So this one has been serviced before. Once you get it up enough, you can usually get your fingers in here and then lift it right up like that. There you go. There's the bottom of the platter. As you can see, it's got a screw on it. That's what operates this gear. It's a gear-driven system. It's an external rim drive. There is an idler. When you put it in zero, it removes it completely. Okay, 78, 45, and 33 speeds. This little idler tire gets a bit tired after a while. We're going to put some rubber renew on this and get it working a little bit better. So to do that, I need to put power to the motor. Just 120 volts onto this plug will do the job. It's up to get my test cord with the alligator clips, and we'll hook that up, and I'll run it off the dim bulb tester so that it's limited. That way, if I were to short something out, it's not going to go boom. Like if my test clips were to short together, for example, it's not going to go boom. It's just going to turn the light on bright. So here's my power cord. If I plug my power cord in, okay, I've got my power cord plugged in. What do you think is going to happen if I short these together? You think it's going to spark? No, it's just going to turn the light on. Right? We're limited to about 0.8 of an amp here. Still enough to give you a nice shock if you touch both wires, but it's not going to go and spark or do anything. if you accidentally short something out. So whenever we're working on anything where we're going to use jumper clips to connect things, we want to make sure that we're on our dim bulb tester. That way we don't have to worry about shorting anything out. If that switch was on the full position, of course, when I did that, I would blow the fuse in my variac, because that is connected to my variac, which is connected to my isolation transformer, which is plugged in to the power strip. Maximum power I'm going to get, well, 3 amps. So I think it's 3 or 3.5 amps is what the fuse is in here. But that's going to limit it to a 100 watt, because it's a 100 watt incandescent bulb, which is about 0.8 of an amp, something like that. And that's below what the fuse is rated. So it's going to save a fuse from blowing. And it's going to save me from getting lots of sparks. The thing that I noticed when I pulled the platter off is that the ball bearings are missing. You see here? There should be 3 ball bearings right in here, and they're missing. And they're not sitting on here, and they didn't fall out because I haven't moved this unit. But the ball bearings are missing. So whoever serviced this before lost the 3 ball bearings. Normally they sit in this carrier, right? But the 3 ball bearings sit in here. And this sits on top of here. And then this washer that's on here, it goes on top of this. Like that. But unfortunately the ball bearings are missing, so I can't do much about that. That was from a prior servicing. As I say, this thing's so old, I'm sure it's been serviced a few times because it wasn't seized up or anything. Gotta get some rubber renew on the tire over here, so when we power the unit up, that tire will start to spin as soon as I lift the tone arm off of the switch. As you can see, it's cleaning off a lot of the crap that was on here. Takes off the oxidation, softens up the edge a bit. It was working, it's just that when the auto mechanism operated, it's slowing down. But that could be due to the bearing missing, because when it operates, when it's turning this gear, it's actually pulling down on the platter. It pushes down on it, not up. If we look at the way that the platter turns, right, it turns clockwise. So the screw thread is turning the gear down this way, and that will of course pull the platter down onto that bearing, which the ball bearings are missing, and that's probably why it's slowing down when the auto mechanism is operating. It's just because there's excess friction there due to the fact that the ball bearings are missing. Did I say that enough? Did I say ball bearings enough? I'm triggering someone by saying the ball bearings are missing. Anyway, let's let this thing just set up a bit. And then we'll put some lubricant on here and put the platter back on. So we're going to clean out the grease off the old bearing pieces here. And I'm going to lube it with some super lube or something. But we'll clear this off. And same with down in here. Going to use some synthetic super lube grease and put some grease on the parts that are going to spin. This has got plastic, I don't have the ball bearings, but it does have plastic little runners here that will make contact, so we'll put some on that and on the bottom surface of this washer, actually both surfaces of the washer. You don't need much grease when you're greasing these units up. You really don't need much, because too much grease is worse than not enough, as they say, right? So we'll put this clip back on here. We'll lock it in place. There. Okay, let's check out, see how the thing turns. $45 and $33. Excellent. Let's see how this thing picks up. And if I set it to the 10-inch position, and if I set it to the 12-inch position, you guys can't see what I'm doing, but trust me, I'm pushing the button for reject. We should go to the 12-inch position now. And if I push stop and then hit reject, stop. I think it should stop this time. Cool. Works. Excellent. Okay, that part works. If we look at the mechanism down here, there's lots of grease on this. I don't think I really need to do anything down below here, because there's lots of grease on this mechanism. I've got it turned off now, so the motor's not going to pull it. But if we look at the mechanism here, I mean, yeah, this is dried a little bit here, but this moves. Like, it's not gummed up. See, when you push the start, you notice what it does? It actually is what lifts the tone arm up. When you push the start, it's a little prong here. And what that does is, when the tone arm is sitting in the off position, so when you push this down, it turns the motor on. And if I push reject and then followed by stop, it will stop it. that's how that works. You feel the three distinct 10-inch, 12-inch stop. So when you're playing an LP, you would first push down that and then set your speed and then push the reject start button. And it would play the record. Now once the record is playing, if you didn't have a bunch of records stacked and you wanted it to stop at the end of the record, you could push the stop button. And now when the record gets to the end, and it picks the record up, it should return and stop. Pretty cool, huh? Again, this is slowing down because those ball bearings are missing from the below the chassis. And that's what the problem is when it operates the mechanism, it actually pulls down on here slightly, which is causing it to slow down. There's actually quite a bit of torque here. And it actually stops the motor. The motor is not slipping. It actually is stopping the motor from turning. So no problem there as far as the operation goes. I think I can probably put this unit back together. I'm going to put a little bit of lubricant on here first, and then we'll put it back together. Maybe use some Molly coat on this one. I mean, it's just, there's really not a lot that needs to be done. I've decided for this I'm just going to use some oil, because the parts themselves are not seized at this point, so oil will run in quite readily and lubricate any moving parts. And again, this unit's not going to see a lot of use. There's lots of grease down there. I'll put a little bit down here where these pieces slide. Well, the last thing I'm going to do before putting this back together is I'm going to lubricate the motor itself. So the motor is held in place. It looks like 3 screws. There's this cage come off. This cage might come off of it. It's got a cage around it, you see. It's got the mechanism that controls the speed is also attached to it. I want to get some oil into the bearing of the motor. Looks like these screws have been taken out before on it. remove these screws, or the nuts I should say, and the spring comes off the bottom here. They just have a nut as a lock washer on here. And probably the height isn't critical. Knowing Phillips, it would be. Okay, so here's the motor assembly itself. Well, the motor doesn't appear to, the motor's spinning freely. You can see where the little tire engages with the motor for the different speeds. I'm in the stop position now. But if we turn this, see, 33, 45 is here, 78 is there, and that's off, which pulls the tire away from the motor. But this motor certainly is stalling out when it's running through the mechanism. So I don't know if lubricating it will help. We'll put some lube. We'll try and put some lube down into the bearing on the top and the bottom. We'll just put some oil down in there, see whether we can free this motor up a little bit. I just want to get some motor, or get some oil right onto the shaft itself without spilling it all over the outside of the shaft. I don't want to end up with oil other than where I want it, which is right down inside the bearing itself. Another bearing on the back side of the motor. I don't know if I can get to it or not. If I can take this metal box off, I can get in there, but I don't know how it's attached. I guess there's a couple screws on the side here that hold it in place, so if I can take these two screws out, I might be able to get this cover off and then get to the back bearing and lubricate that. There we go. Alright, now I can probably take this back plate off the motor and actually put some oil right inside it. Of course, this is the one that's going to have all the thrust on it because of the weight of the motor. The actual rotor itself will be weighing down on this when it's running. ball bearing right there on the bottom of the motor. We'll put some oil on here, and of course some oil into the bottom of the bearing here. That ball bearing will go back on top of this. I'm going to drop it. So hopefully that will free this motor up a little more. One thing I don't want to do is I don't want to take the bearing apart. I want to take the actual base off of it here, because that'll affect the actual lateral adjustment of the motor itself and could cause it to jam. These motors here were not as well built as some of the more modern ones that had self-centering bearings. These ones are they're adjusted and they are set at the factory, and if you get them out of whack, there is play, so you could end up with a shaft that is not true and not spinning true. So I don't want to take out any of these other screws like that hold the bearing on here. Just the base plate here, at least that lines up. It fits in a hole, right? So put bottom cover on. There's a Skeeter around here, and I'm going to get it with my if I don't get it first, I'm going to get it with my Skeeter zapper, because he's flying around my head here trying to attack me, and he's going to go boom in a second. As soon as he lands on this thing, he's going to explode with a couple thousand volts of juice. Yeah, see? So if you hear something go snap, you'll know it was a mosquito just meeting his maker as I wave this thing around to try to eliminate the threat. I don't know how many turns these have to have on them, how much tension they've got on them. I would imagine it's just got to give some tension to hold the springs under compression a bit, and then the lock nut holds it in place. I could be wrong. This might be a critical adjustment. I really don't know. I'm guessing. It's shock mounted, so I would imagine that enough tension to hold it up to the top is what it's required. Okay, let's see how this works now. Remember, it was going really slow. Looks like it's working okay. Try the next speed up, 45. Where the hell is that goddamn thing? Come on, land on here, you piece of crap. I want to electrocute you. You bastard. Thing keeps flying around my head and then it disappears. As soon as I get out the fly spotter, it decides it's going to go and hide. It'll be back though. It will be back. Let's see how 45 works. Ah, it's not slowing down now. That's good. I think we can try this. Put it back in the cabinet and see how it sounds. If we want to check out our rough speed, 45 RPM. Pretty close. 33. Yeah, that's... and 78. I think we're pretty close. So the unit rests on the springs when we put in the plastic nuts that secure it down. Just going to get them to line up. Reinsert the plugs for the power and the audio out, and now I can put the base on it because this thing is, as far as I'm concerned, it's fixed. I don't need to do any more work on this one. Should be good for another 50 years. Or as good as it's going to be for the next 50 years. So I'll put the bottom cover on. That's what you get when you get a unit that's this old and it's been serviced many times, and whoever serviced it just put whatever screws they had lying around. Surprised it doesn't have some Phillips screws in it as well. Okay, let's just test it out. Where's power? Put it on radio first. Radio. Make sure it's working.
Scoops, backyards, and picnics. Available at Save On Foods wine shops, private liquor stores, or online at ReclineRidgeWinery.com.
Okay, so we know that that part works. Let's put the 45 RPM adapter in. That just sits on like that. That's working a little better. It's working a whole lot better. I'm cutting these off real quick because some of these old classics pull copyright strikes faster than the new stuff, believe it or not. Stop it at the end of this. I just push the stop button, and if I reject it with the stop button down, it will stop. And then we'll try an LP. Okay, so now it's stopped. We can grab our little stack of 45s and take them off this 45 stacker. We'll take the 45 spindle off, set it over there. I'm going to grab an LP. Now, there was 2 spindles available for this. If you want to run them manually, you have to use the other spindle, but for automatic, there's no way to drop the record down. It has to do it automatically, so that's when you put this on. This clamp has to be held in place for LP records, otherwise they won't work. So we start it up. We select our 12-inch record. I didn't even have that in the right place. It's supposed to be like that. Oops. Might help if I put it on the right speed. Wrong needle too. I'm using the Sapphire. Oh well. I can play this without taking a copyright hit. Tweeters are working on the side and the big woofer on the front. What I don't know is, does the other stylus sound any different? One's a diamond and the other's a sapphire, right? So now, if I wanted it to stop playing at the end of the record, I could just push the stop button here. And whoops. And now, if I didn't push stop, well, first of all, when it plays the last record, it's going to stop automatically. But if I only had one record on, or if I only had the single record spindle, and I only wanted it to play once, I could press the stop button. But it would, after this drops down, it would reject it at the end. But we'll help it along. Picks up, returns, and stops. That's the end of the record. And that's the end of this restoration. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. See this? Look at this. With this, you can't take the record out. You either have to push this down to release the records, or you have to lift the spindle up and remove the records. That's just the way that these things were designed back in the day. Anyway, that's it. We're done. Thanks for watching. Now back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Change the topic, change the clarity. I just think that, I mean, yes, you could give it to your buddy because he loved them. You would have to do that on the promise.
Jim Allen. Vancouver's all funny. 40 a.m.
Now it's Christopher Titus. My last girlfriend, case number.
Thanks for watching.